Hello, and welcome to part 2. Today, I'm going to be diving deeper into my spiritual journey following the events of Christ granting me salvation. If you missed part 1, what are you doing? Go back and watch the first video. Before you come here, right? What do you think this is? The original trilogy or something? Well, here I am. I have salvation. I'm happier, more joyful. My heart is in the right place, and I'm not this boring little orb of anger and purposelessness. I feel like I've made the best decision of my entire 7-year-old life. I've accepted the call of the hero's journey, and I've officially left the threshold and entered a whole new world of possibilities. But fast forward 10 years later, and I'm in a very different place. See, I wanted to be a filmmaker, the next George Lucas. But being homeschooled and growing up in a small town in Texas doesn't necessarily scream road to success. But I was so confident that this was my calling. I kept working at it and making little shorts here and there, trying to grow my portfolio with the limited resources I had. Something you should know about me is I love roots. I love friendships and family members and the locations that I call home. When I get attached to something, it's a bond that is nearly impossible to break. Through the thick and thin, I graduated high school at 17 with my friends, and it just felt like one of those pillars of life. I could look back with them and say, you know what, we did that together. I was so content, and I was so happy where I was, and I just didn't want it to end. And I was making these little tiny steps to becoming a filmmaker, and I just had the best time of my life. I was comfortable, and then I moved to Florida.
It's gonna blow!
The reasons for my family moving is a story within itself, but at the time, I felt like I was completely uprooted and thrown into the middle of nowhere. Suddenly, I felt like I had to start over with everything. New friends, new church, new job, my momentum in filmmaking grinded to a halt, and now I've got to find a way to continue my pursuit of becoming the next George Lucas, and I don't even know where to begin. I was depressed. I was angry, and I felt like I had no purpose. I suddenly was this little orb of confusion, anger, and depression. Doesn't that sound familiar? This was the belly of the beast. The trials and tribulations I was not what I was expecting in my spiritual journey, and I was failing. Not only had we found a really nice church with a great youth group, but I had people coming up to me and trying to make conversation and trying to be my friend, but I wasn't budging. I didn't want it. I wanted to go home.
Be my friend?
So within the first 10 months, I managed to scrounge up enough funds to go on a vacation to Texas and go see my old friends. When I got there, I just felt so alive and so happy, and I just didn't want it to end.
Nothing's worrying me.
And on Wednesday nights, the youth group had a church service, and of course I went, and one of my friends went up on stage and she talked about how her whole life she wanted to be the next big country star. Sound familiar? But then God told her he had other plans for her. He wanted her to lead worship at a church. And to this day, she's the lead worship pastor, singing worship songs to large congregations of people and bringing them closer to God.
Ironic.
And it really hit me, because after I heard that story, for the first time in a long time, I asked God if all this time I had the same mindset that was taking me down the wrong path. And almost immediately, in my heart, I could just hear God say, "Yeah, moron."
Emotional damage.
So I asked God what he wants from me. And again, immediately, I could just feel the weight on my heart when God simply said,
Follow me.
At the time, I didn't know what he meant, but I still understood the assignment. I needed to change my heart and refocus all my endeavors on Christ. So I flew back to Florida that Saturday, and the following Sunday, I went to church, and I began to open up to the youth group for the very first time. I made a friend who is still one of my closest buddies to this day. His name is Daniel Evangelista. Great guy. What's up, buddy? But anyways, after church ended, the children's pastor came up to me. And it was a bit weird because we had only talked once, and it was a little short conversation in the past. So I basically knew her name and that was about it. But she came up to me and she offered me an internship at the church. Like, what? It wasn't long after I started it, they learned that I enjoyed film and video. And guess what? 4 years later, I produce film and video content for my church, West Bradenton Baptist.
Ironic.
I'm still on my quest for righteousness to this day, but in my journey, I've developed and grown deeper in my relationship with God. I've accepted the fact that I'm human, and that means I'm not only going to screw up quite a bit, but I also know I don't have everything figured out, especially my purpose. In life, if you do not evolve, if you do not grow and mature and develop as a human being, you just won't survive. That doesn't just apply to religion, that's growing up, period. You will devolve into something you're not. You will always struggle with depression and finding purpose. And what's crazy is God would use my character flaws to give me an incredible arc in my story. And you know what? You might say, well, that's great for you, Zach, but it's just not great for me. You know, that might be true for you, but it's just not true for me. Let me encourage you by suggesting that if there were multiple truths, if truth really was subjective, then there is no truth. If there were multiple ways into heaven, then how would you know which way is the right way? There is nothing foundational to lean on when you are broken and lost and depressed. But there is one truth, one way, one foundation, and Jesus Christ can be all of those things for you if you just give him a chance. Take a chance on the creator of the universe. Test him. Say, hey, God, I'm going to open my heart for whatever, and whatever happens, let's see what you can do. And if you really open yourself to the possibilities, I promise you won't regret it. Everyone is the hero of their story, whether they like it or not. The question is, are you going to accept your call to the journey? Or are you going to linger and stay comfortable? Go against the current, man. Fight the crowd with me. The world is telling us that there is no God, that there is no single truth. But here I am, leaving all my personal desires aside and putting all my trust in God, and I couldn't be more joyful. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.